Hi everyone, welcome to the Protocols.io intro webinar for today. My name is Julia. I'm a scientific engagement manager at Protocols.io. So part of my role is helping people understand the platform, get started, get the most of it. So looking forward to speaking with everyone today. So to start off, we have a little bit of housekeeping that I'll go over. So the webinar is being recorded. I've already started that recording now, so all of the webinar registrants will receive a link to the recording as well as a link to the slides. So feel free to sit back and listen. You'll get all this information later if you want to go over it again. Closed captioning should also be enabled if you want to use them. You can go up down to the Zoom toolbar and enable that. We will also have time for Q&A at the end, so please feel free to add in your questions either directly into the chat or into the Zoom Q&A box. If you want to learn more as well, at the end I'll talk about some of our other webinars, and you could also request a one-on-one demo of the platform if you would like. So in terms of what I'll cover in our intro presentation today, I'll of course introduce Protocols.io kind of on a high level, what we're about. I'll also talk about how it plays into method sharing more broadly, as well as the concept of modular publishing. So that'll be about maybe 15-20 minutes of slides. And then after that, I will jump into the Protocols.io platform and show you how to get started and how to kind of do some of the basic functionality. So Protocols.io, it was actually originally a startup. So it was founded in 2012 in California. And kind of fast forward over 10 years later, it was then acquired by Springer Nature in 2023. So it's now kind of a product within Springer Nature. And it's really a process workflow tool focused on protocols and methods. Part of that is that we are an open access repository for sharing methods and protocols. So you can see kind of some stats along the bottom there. So we've got a lot of people using the platform, tons of public protocols on the platform. And then we also have site licenses for universities as well as some government and corporate partners for really taking advantage of the process workflow part of the platform. And so really the mission of Protocols.io kind of from inception was to make it easy to share method details before, during, and after publication. And what that means is to do that, there are two sides to the platform. So there is the open access repository where I mentioned before. So that's the free side of the platform that anyone can use and access. So you can discover detailed scientific protocols. You can publish your scientific protocols as well. And so that is all completely free. And then there's the other side of the platform, which is as a private collaboration tool. So that is the kind of this is the paid side of the platform. You still can take advantage of it to a certain extent with the free account. But to really, the free account is really built for open protocol sharing. And so those two sides of the platform really kind of feed into one another. So what I'll talk about in a bit, there's lots of functionality on the platform that makes it easy to kind of move through the different stages of research. So if you look at the published content on the platform, that can be repurposed and reused and brought into the private side of the platform by creating a new version or a new fork of one of the published protocols. That means it's then brought into your private workspace and you can edit it and adapt it for your own laboratory setup, piece of equipment, whatever type of experiment you have planned. Then on the private side of the platform, you can edit and optimize that method as you're improving upon it. And then when it becomes time to publish, because it's already all documented on the private side of the platform in the relevant format that would also go into the public side of the platform, it becomes very easy to click publish and then share it with the world. And then make it easy for someone else to kind of do the same thing. And then we kind of create this cycle of building upon and improving other people's methods and research. So for anyone who has joined today, I will mention that if you aren't sure, you can check if your university already provides you with premium protocols.io, because that might be the case and you don't know it. So what you can do is go to protocols.io/for institutions. If you scroll down on the page, you'll see a box that looks like this. And then you'll see a list of organizations, and you can check if your university is in that list. And if they are, you'll see a set of instructions for how you can access your premium account. If you aren't in that list, there are other kind of protocol plans that are available. You can, of course, use the open research one. If you wish that your university would provide you with institutional protocols.io access, you can kind of get in touch and we can help you advocate for that at your university. So it would be no cost to you, but the university would provide that. All right, so in terms of why kind of protocols.io came about in the first place, it was really to solve this problem and difficulty with the fact that methods are often lost or not reported in sufficient detail. So, the reason for this could be due to a variety of things. So it can be inconsistent kind of practices, people's busy schedules, but the outcome is the same. These methods are lost over time. So this slide is showing some examples of where researchers are frustrated by being unable to find methods. So my favorite is the one in the middle where we've got a citation chain back to multiple papers saying devices were fabricated as previously described. And then when you get to the original paper, it says devices were fabricated with conventional methods. So that's not very helpful. So even in published research, finding the methodological details to replicate that work is difficult. So we know how to do it, we publish how to do it, but just not in enough detail that when someone comes back to it later, they were able to understand that. And so, I'm sure many people on this call today are kind of familiar with that concept, and it's been looked into in greater detail. So there's a very interesting project in the last 10 years. This was the Cancer Reproducibility Project. The goal there was to take 50 published high impact and important papers in cancer biology and see if it was possible to replicate the results when performing those experiments again. But actually what happened is that this project stopped after trying to replicate 18 papers because it was just too cost and time intensive to replicate those experiments. And really the main reason for that was one of the reasons for that was the lack of protocols and methods being completely described. So we can see here on the left, this is a nice write-up in The Atlantic, and they say, the hardest part was figuring out exactly what the original labs did. And so these method sections come with recipes or protocols, which are often incomplete, missing out on important steps, details, and ingredients, or aren't described at all. And then when that's looked at in more detail, here on the right is another kind of write-up that was done by the Center for Open Science, and they found that of those 53 papers, 0% of protocols were completely described. So clearly, we're not going to be able to replicate those experiments if those methods are completely described. So this happened kind of 10 years ago, back in 2017, but fast forward to now, and there is change still needed. So this is another write-up of a different study that was published just a few months ago now. And I think there's a quote from one of the researchers that captures it really nicely. So the low reproducibility really highlights a structural weaknesses in the way that we produce, document, and communicate science. And so that's what Protocols.io is trying to solve, to kind of create structure in terms of the way of how we share protocols. And so that leads me into this concept of modular publishing. So if you haven't heard of it before, it is the concept of breaking down a research project into smaller standalone outputs or modules that are published independently of a traditional research publication. So that could be something like methods, molecular structures, code, images, data, and those are all then linked to that publication. But they are published in their own fit-for-purpose repositories that are suitable for sharing that type of output. And what that looks like in practice is shown here on the right. So we can see this is a Nature Communications paper, and this is the data availability section, of that paper. So we can see that they've said that they've deposited their expression constructs onto AdGene, their protocols onto protocols.io, and the molecular structure into the protein data bank. And then we zoom in a little bit and look at the protocol section. We'll see that one of the benefits of publishing research in this modular way is that separate research outputs can have distinct author lists. So this is the paper and the protocol shown on that previous slide. So we can see that Kelsey, she's fourth author on the paper, but she had a really big contribution to developing the protocol that was linked within that paper. So she can be first author on the protocol. And that means she can list that protocol as an output that she was responsible for on her CV. She can track the impact of that specific protocol output and see the metrics associated with it. And on Protocols.io, you can see a variety of metrics. So the traditional kind of citation metrics, and you can also see other things that we call kind of non-traditional metrics. So these might be things such as forks or runs of that protocol, things that you can do on Protocols.io that demonstrate that people are using your protocol, they're building upon your protocol, to really show the reach and impact of the methods that you're publishing. So as I've kind of alluded to, the protocols on protocols.io are very dynamic and interactive. So that's kind of different from something that might be static, like a Word or PDF document. So we see on the right here what the protocols on the platform look like. And you can run that protocol as a checklist from your phone, tablet, or computer. You can add in images and videos that make it a lot easier for people to understand exactly what was done. And they're interactive in that people can comment on those protocols and say, hey, this step didn't work for me, any suggestions on what I should do, or they can make their own suggestions on how that protocol can be improved. And then those protocols can be improved and built upon via the creation of new versions and new forks. And of course, the methods and protocols, when they are published on the platform, they receive a DOI so that you can get credit for and track the methods themselves separately from kind of maybe burying something in the supplementary information of a paper, which is actually a place that is not discoverable. Supplementary information isn't text mined. So if people aren't finding the paper, they're not going to find the method in the supplementary information. On protocols.io, it means that the methods can be independently discoverable, and then they can maybe even lead back to the paper, but they are independently discoverable themselves. So in terms of publishing protocols on the platform, so as I mentioned before, it's free to publish and receive a DOI for a method. And what that looks like, I've already kind of shown the modular publishing, but we'll see, for example, in here, in this example, they've published a collection of protocols. So within a research paper, like this example here, there might be, for instance, 5 protocols that are associated with that research paper. So you can put those 5 protocols, oops, sorry about that. You can put those 5 protocols into a collection on protocols.io. That collection will receive a single DOI, and then instead of rewriting all of that information in the materials and methods section of your paper, you can simply say, these methods and protocols are detailed on protocols.io. Don't know why that keeps happening. And then whoever wants to have a look can follow that link and look at that information if they choose to. And then if you do improve on these methods that you linked here, you can update them over time. And so people will always be able to see the method that existed at the time that this paper was published. They'll always be taken to version 1. But when they land on version 1, they'll be notified that there's a newer version of that collection that's available. And then they can view the newer versions of those protocols that you might have published since this paper, for example, was published in 2017. And so I normally have a slide that I kind of show what that looks like in more detail. Oh, I will try and show that now because I think it's a really nice one that I have missing here. Yeah, so this is then what that looks like. So for example, these particular researchers, they developed a protocol and they linked that to a preprint article. But then following the publication of that preprint, they made their own improvements and they were able to publish those improvements on protocols.io. And then those improvements were included in this journal article that was published. And then we know that, once a publication happens, the research doesn't necessarily stop. So they improved upon that protocol again, and they were able to publish those improvements nearly a year later. And because it's on protocols.io, they can keep building on that into the future if they want to, or the protocol can also be updated and built on by other people in the scientific community via forks and things like that. All right, so what I'll do now is I'll move out of the slides and into the protocols.io platform. And what I will be running through on protocols.io are these few things here. So I'm going to show you how to kind of search for published protocols on the platform. I'll kind of run through the different aspects of a published protocol. And then I'll talk a little bit about the private side because you will need to kind of create protocols privately before they're published on the platform. You can create 2 private protocols with the free account. And then how you can share those with others privately and then eventually publish them on the platform. Alrighty. So 1 second while I get the relevant screen up. All right, so this is the protocols.io homepage. And so what I can do is start by searching the repository of public published protocols. So today I'm going to search for genome profiling. And we can see I've got a variety of results. So lots of people have published methods that detail some kind of genome profiling protocol. But if I want to have a look and say what might be kind of the most robust, reproducible protocols on the platform, I can search by a variety of things. So, well, first of all, I'm searching for protocols right now. I can search for other things on protocols.io. I'd say the most relevant probably would be people, so a specific researcher, or a workspace, which I'll talk about in a moment. But to do that, we can search by the impact that that protocol has had. So, how many citations, forks, runs, and also works for me. So on each protocol, there's a little button that if someone tries that protocol in their lab and it works for them, they can come back and click that. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to look at the protocols that work for the most number of people. So I've done that now. We can see we've got some different protocols that are shown here. And we can see here the different metrics that are associated with them. So these are some very popular protocols on the platform. Lots of people have been viewing them, running them, and they've worked for lots of people. So this protocol here is the one that I'm going to look at in more detail. So I've already got that open, and we can see it here on the platform. So I'll run through a little bit of what I like to call an anatomy of a protocol. So we can see here up the top, the first thing is that this is version 3 of the protocol. So the original version was published in 2018, but the authors have, published those improvements. I can easily go back and navigate through these to see what version 1 was. Then I can click here and actually compare what the difference between version 3 and version 1 is. This other dropdown, this is a language dropdown. So I'm right now viewing the protocol in its original language, which is English, but we automatically translate all of the published protocols on the platform into these 5 languages. So this is relatively new, actually. It's very exciting. We rolled this out, I think, in the last month or so. So I can come in and I can view this protocol in, one of these languages. So it is a AI translation. So I'm going to go ahead and do German. I'm actually based in Germany. And so we'll open in a new tab that protocol. So, the system itself will kind of be in English, but we can see, for example, it's translated the abstract, this before starting section. And if I go down to these steps, we can see that it's put it into German. So that's a really nice way if, which I'd say most people in the world aren't. If English isn't your first language, you can come down and try and see if we've got one of your languages, and view the protocol in that way. Because it's AI, kind of treat it with a keen eye. But if you do notice any kind of errors in translations, you can maybe you can create a fork, and edit, or add in a comment to put in that information. And so the next thing we'll see is that this specific protocol is linked to a paper, and that is this eLife paper here. So what that means is that in this paper, they have said that, we have distributed their materials and, field questions and answers on protocols.io. So that is, and they've put in that DOI. So this is the protocol associated with this paper. And I can know that here, but you don't always have to go through that step of associating a protocol on the platform with a paper. You can just publish a method standalone outside of any other output. This is the Works for Me button that I was mentioning before, and I can see exactly what kind of labs this protocol has worked in. Then I'll see there's various tabs along the top here that have other additional information. So things like warnings. Oh, I'm still in the German one. Things like warnings, troubleshooting information, materials that are used in that protocol, and the metrics associated with that protocol. So how many people are viewing it over time, where it's been cited, and this other untraditional metrics that I mentioned before. So next, I'll show the workspaces on protocols.io. So on the platform, I'll show this protocol here, for example. So this protocol, it's forked from another protocol on the platform, so we can see exactly what piece of work it's been built upon. And this protocol is also part of several workspaces. And we can see those workspaces here on the bottom. So I'm going to go to this coronavirus method development community workspace. And what that is, it's a publicly discoverable kind of open community on protocols.io. So anyone can kind of search protocols.io or Google as well, and happen upon this community. So I'm already a member, but if I wasn't, I could freely join that. Other workspaces you would have to request to join. And then I would be able to contribute to the protocols that are published as part of this workspace. So I can see, some information about this workspace and what protocols are published within it. So if you're thinking about, you might have your own workspace that's part of your research group or a specific department. So I'm Julia, I might have the Julia Lab workspace, and then all of the protocols that come out of my lab would be discoverable within this list of protocols in that workspace. And I could also track the impact of that workspace as a whole via this impact tab here. So I can see across all of my protocols, how are they being cited and viewed. So this is the public aspect of workspaces. But if we look onto the private side of the platform, there are private workspaces as well where you can do that kind of internal collaboration, and they would not be discoverable publicly on the platform. So I'll move on to the private side of the platform now. So this is my demo workspace. So this is not discoverable to anyone. This is just for me and whoever I want to invite into that workspace. So currently, I'll open this one. So these are all of the workspaces that I'm a member of. So I'll see currently I've got a couple of other members of that workspace. These are all alter egos of me because it's a demonstration. But the members of that workspace, depending on how I configure my specific workspace settings, will all be able to kind of view the protocols that are in these workspaces and edit and collaborate on those protocols together before we're ready to publish them. And so if you're new to Protocol.io and you've just created an account on the platform, you'll start off, what you'll probably start off on, oh, this is glitching out a little bit. I'll just go ahead and refresh, and that should fix it up. There we go. You'll be prompted to create a workspace when you create an account, and you'll end up on a page like this, but it will look a lot more empty. And so then what you can do is you can invite members here, or you can go into your workspace folder, and this will be all of your private protocols on the platform. So you'll want to probably create a protocol. There are several ways to do this on the platform. You can either create a protocol from scratch. So you can go ahead, create a protocol. You can also import a protocol here. For example, if you already had something drafted in a Word or PDF format, you can bring that into the platform. And what it will do is convert that Word or PDF document into the structured stepwise protocols.io format. You can also, if you see something on the platform that you want to modify for your own purposes, you can go to any of those published works and click on this copy fork button. And then you can make your own private editable copy of that specific protocol. So I won't go ahead and create that now. But what I will show is how to import a protocol. So I've got an example protocol. Oops, I've lost my, there we go. I've got an example test protocol that you can see here. So it's very simple making of a salt solution with 10 steps. So I can upload that file. And then click convert, and it will convert that word into a protocol file. So you should see something here, and shortly it will start processing that protocol. It usually takes a few minutes. It depends on the complexity of that protocol. But it will bring that in. So I've got a couple, I do various webinars. So this is the one that's processing at the moment. These are previous ones that I've brought in. But while that's processing, what I will do is show you how to create a protocol from scratch. So if I go ahead and create a new protocol, we'll have a blank document here. So you can put in a title, and then there's various different tabs along the top where you can put in other pieces of information. An alternative way, if you already have kind of an idea of something drafted elsewhere, is you can bring information into the platform here. So what I can do is insert steps from text. So I can go back to this protocol as an alternative way of doing this. I will gonna copy these steps, paste that in, and I can select each number is a step. And then it will bring all of that and separate them out into individual steps. I can convert some of those to sub-steps if I want to, and then click to add to protocol. And maybe I only want one section. So I'll name that procedure, and I'll name this if I want to, I can then add in various components to that protocol. So for example, I've got an amount here. I can convert that to an amount. I've got a reagent here, and I can select exactly what reagent I used. So we bring in various, I don't think I spelled that right. So we've brought in various vendor catalogs. So whatever version of sodium chloride you're using in your lab, you can select that here because it can be, very crucial when you use a specific reagent, maybe more common with antibodies than salt. An antibody from one supplier, the protocol might work. If there's an antibody from a different supplier, it all of a sudden doesn't work. So it can be really important to put in that information. Again, that will be in that component format. I've got a couple of other amounts in here. And when I put this information in this component format, it means that it's easy for the system to read and understand it, and it becomes a lot more reusable. So we won't kind of go into it in detail today, but when you run these protocols as a checklist, and I have this information in the format of components, I can, for example, scale the protocol or scale an individual step up and down. So that's kind of an overview of how to bring a protocol onto the platform. Let's go back and see if that protocol's processed. So this is the one, it has processed. I'll view that protocol. And we can see it's basically done the same thing, kind of brought that information in. But it's also, if you remember, I also had a list of materials. Sorry, I thought I was about to sneeze. We also have a list of materials in that Word document. It's brought in that list of materials and put it in the materials section. If I had authors, it would have brought those authors in as well. So I also have another example here. We can see, oh, I don't think I have that open anymore. Here we go. It's pulled in those authors and affiliations during the protocol import as well. So what else do I have to show today? So once I've imported a protocol, what I can do is then share that with whoever might be drafting that protocol alongside me. So this is a test protocol that I've imported, and everyone who's part of my workspace will be able to view and edit that. But maybe there's someone from a different lab who isn't in my workspace that I want to look over it before I publish it. So I can go in and I can click share. So I can see these are the permissions within my workspace, and then I can add someone else. So you can select people or an entire workspace, and then put in their email and share it with them. And they will be able to view or edit depending on what I select. When it becomes time that I want to publish, I can click to view that protocol. So this is a preview of what it will look like when it's published on the platform. And then we can see there's various options here along the top. So I can either click publish. If I want to publish it immediately, it will be a very short 5-step process. You'll need to fill in some information like, the abstract, the authors, any funding, things like that. There's some extra steps. If you want to remove comments that you added privately, but you don't want to show on the public side of the platform, that you'll need to run through. But after that, There will be a short 24-hour moderation that we do to screen out, spam, pseudoscience, and then your protocol will receive its DOI and be publicly discoverable to the world. An alternative is if you do want to link this to a research paper, but you don't want to make the protocol publicly available until the paper's published, you can reserve a DOI. You'll need to go through that same process, but you'll just receive your DOI at the end. We also do have some partnerships with with journals. So if you write up a protocol on the platform and you'd like to write up a journal article alongside that protocol, you can submit it to one of our partners, and then you will get a little peer review badge onto your protocol. But that is most of what I had to show today outside of the platform. I will move back into the slides now. Um, and I've already kind of talked about this, but this shows in detail the differences between all of the publishing options. So to finish off, I wanted to I can say, how great protocols.io is today, but it's nice to hear it from other people. So these are some quotes that came out of interviews that one of my colleagues does with authors. And this is a nice example of how publishing on protocols.io can enhance your profile, especially as an early career researcher. So John said that, he published his protocol on the platform, and as a result of that, he was able to establish himself as someone with expertise in a specific technique. And so he was tapped as a reviewer, and he also thought that the protocol, having developed that, looked really nice on his CV. Outside of earlier career researchers, it can be really great for professors as well. So Professor Luciano Martellotto said that he published his protocols on the platform, and about 80% of his collaborations came about as a direct result of doing that. So people do find these protocols, and it's a really nice way to kind of find other people who are, maybe trying to work on methods similar to you. So finally, I think the protocol example that I showed today was more of a wet lab biology protocol, but we are not discipline specific. So we allow any protocol or method to be put on the platform across all disciplines. These are some examples of different disciplines that have put their methods on the platform. When you receive these slides later, you can check them out if you are in any of these disciplines, but the platform is really flexible and open to everyone. And then these are some of the organizations that really have kind of come on board and have seen that we need to change the way we're approaching research methods and really encourage the use of protocols.io. So even though we are a product of Springer Nature, we are publisher agnostic, and we have lots of different publishers that are recommending that you put your methods onto protocols.io. There's also several funders that recommend that as well. ASAP Parkinson's, for example, they actually mandate that if they are funding your research, you need to be sharing your methods on protocols.io. And then, as I already mentioned at the start, there's lots of different universities that have site licenses to allow their researchers to take full advantage of the public and private side of the platform. I was only able to scratch the surface in terms of what's possible with the platform during the time we had today. But if you do need additional help, there's lots of different resources available. So we have kind of self-service resources on our help center and tutorials. If you want more tailored hands-on help, you can also request a one-on-one demo or a dedicated webinar for example, your university. We're happy to accommodate that. So that's all I had to cover today. Before we go into the Q&A, I would like to ask that you fill out this webinar feedback survey. It's a few multiple choice questions, and it helps us improve these webinars for other people who join later to make sure we're kind of making the information as relevant as possible. So I'd really appreciate if people would fill that out. And then I'll go ahead and stop the recording and open the floor to questions. Mm.